I am Corvette Hop. Welcome to the channel. Hey, our goal is to make videos that help you. So let's keep those cars on the road. Today we're going to do a video on the electronic module inside a distributor. We're going to replace the points and condenser and put an electronic module in. With that, let's go ahead and get started. This is what the electronic ignition module looks like that we're going to put into the distributor. Let's start with a little brief orientation of the 350 Chevy. So this is the number one spark plug wire that actually points in the direction of the number one spark plug. So the sequence of order around the distributor is number 1, number 8, number 4, number 3, number 6, 5, 7, and 2. One more time. This is the firing order for the distributor. Number 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, and 2. And of course, this is the wire from the distributor to the coil. Yeah, when we're talking about a timing mark at top dead center, we're talking about this area right here. The number 1 spark plug is located in this area down here. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8 cylinder. We'll be concerned with number 1 cylinder and how the number 1 spark plug wire right here points to number 1 spark plug cylinder. Number 1 spark plug and the cylinder in this direction right here. Go ahead and set your timing mark to 0, our top dead center. Notice the white line. You can do this by turning your ignition key slightly until the mark lines up. A good way to make sure that you're not 180 degrees off is to go ahead and look to see your position of your rotor. If the rotor is pointing to the number 1 cylinder, then you know that your timing mark is on. Now this will be very important when you reinstall the distributor. Today we're going to install a Pertronix electric ignition system into a standard points distributor. Some of the things you'll need is a hammer, a punch, feeler gauge, a little wire stripper, screwdriver, and we'll go ahead and get started. First, go ahead and remove the distributor cap. Go ahead and inspect it to make sure you have no carbon buildup or anything like that inside the distributor cap. Any burn marks. Now, this happens to be a brand new one, so this one's okay. Go ahead and look at the rotor, see how good the rotor is. This rotor is also pretty much almost brand new, so we'll go ahead and stay with the rotor, but we'll go ahead and remove the rotor. Okay, right here is the points and condenser. We'll remove the points and condenser. We'll save the screws and set those aside. We go ahead and remove the old points wire. It has a grommet here on the back side, so I would suggest just clipping it, and then we can just pull it through. We'll clip it here and just pull it through, and then we can go ahead and remove this grommet, which is right here. Wow. That's a tough grommet. You may want to clean the base plate with some cleaning solvent just to get all the grease and stuff out of there. We'll go ahead and install the magnet ring. So we'll go ahead and install the rotor on top of the magnetic ring. We'll take 2 of the thick washers from the hardware kit, install them right on top here. Then we'll take the rotor and install, and then we'll put the 2 nuts that's also provided in the hardware kit and install right here. Okay, now that we can see the rotor is squarely onto the studs, we'll go ahead and tighten it with the 5/16 socket. And the module goes in the same place that the points went, which is right here in this location right here. This is why we saved the 2 screws from the points. And it simply goes in just like this. This is what it looks like. 2 screws here. 1, 2, 1, 2. This is what the module looks like installed on the distributor. Okay, now we'll check the air gap between the magnet ring and the module. 10,000 at its lowest point, 60 thousandths at its highest point. If it's larger than that, we'll have to put a shim at the bottom of the distributor. So we'll go ahead and look at this and then rotate and look for the largest gap, which is right here. Okay, so that tells me we're going to need a shim because this is about 70 to 75 thousandths. Because the gap is about 75 thousandths, I will need to add 2 shims. We will need to use a punch to push out the retaining pin, drop the gear, and put in 2 shims. The shims are provided with the kit. There we go. We do need to save this pin because we're going to reinstall it once we're finished. Have 2 shims inside to make up the gap. This gives me about right at 60 thousandths, the highest point. So again, the air gap at the lowest point is 10 thousandths and at the highest point 60 thousandths, as demonstrated here. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to feed the wires back through the hole where we took the grommet and the old wire out. And then the black wire. Make sure the wires do not interfere with anything, especially the vacuum advance. And we're just going to feed them through. Now keep in mind, this rotates, so you can't leave it up like this so that it hits. You need to push it down in there. There we go. Note how nice and snug it is. And through the bottom. Here we go. Now that we're sure the wires do not interfere with anything, we'll go ahead and put the grommet on. The grommet is provided in the hardware kit. And we'll just feed that through. And that's what it looks like. Now we'll go ahead and make sure all the hardware is tight, to include the module. Well, with that pretty much completes the job. We'll go ahead and put the distributor cap on. Well, there you go. Now you have electronic ignition replacing points and condenser on our distributor. Okay, one thing I'm going to do is make sure it has the distributor gasket. This way oil does not flow out. I'm going to go ahead and put a little assembly lube on the gear so that when I set it down in the engine it's not so dry. In addition, I'm going to make sure that when I do set the distributor into the engine that it sets down flush all the way against the engine so that the gasket seals. There we go. What I'm trying to do is make sure it gets flush. And I can tell already it's not all the way. There it goes. Oh, that's down. Let's take the distributor off, and we're going to make sure that that rotor is pointing at the #1 cylinder, and in this case it is not, so we'll have to make some adjustments with the distributor. Now all I am doing is what I call clocking. I'm just lifting up the distributor and rotating it until I can get that rotor to line up, pointing at the #1 cylinder. Keep in mind, what I'm really talking about is the rotor facing the #1 spark plug wire that points to the #1 cylinder. Remember, when we first pulled the distributor, set the timing mark at top dead center, had the rotor pointing to the #1 cylinder? This is why. So we can all put it back together the exact same way. Okay, there we go. Now we have the rotor going to the #1 cylinder in that direction. Go ahead and put the cap on. These are the two wires coming from the electronic ignition. You will notice I went ahead and put the ends on it. I also put a little heat shrink to the ends so that they stay in place. I'll go ahead and connect these. Clearly the red goes to the positive side of the coil, and the ground goes to the negative side of the coil, just like this. Now this is the wire providing power to the coil. This is a yellow and white wire. This comes from the engine harness. We'll go ahead and connect that also. And that goes there just like this. And the ground side. Notice how #1 still points to #1 spark plug. And then we'll go ahead and connect the distributor to the coil. Now once that is done, we can go ahead and start the car. It should fire up, and then make any adjustments to the timing of the car by just rotating the distributor left or right. Right now I have the coil temporarily installed with some wire ties, but I'm gonna, once I know that that's the position I want it to be in, I'm gonna go ahead and attach these metal brackets. Now we'll go ahead and start the car, see if it starts up. Rotate the timing by turning the distributor cap counterclockwise or clockwise. Dropping off an RPMs right there. Dropping off. The right about here is about the sweet point. Let's also put a timing light on it. That'll be covered in another video. The last thing you need to do is tighten the distributor hold down bolt.
If you like these videos, please take the time to go ahead and subscribe.
And with that, thanks for watching. Keep those cars on the road.